Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to our first Aging Tech Israel group live discussion. I'm very excited to host more than 40 people, 30 people from the Israeli entrepreneurial ecosystem. And today we have two special guests from United States, and also will join us people from all around the world. My name is Roy Koren. I'm the co-owner and founder of Senior Market. We are consultancy agency in Israel that is focused on senior audiences and longevity. And I founded this group about a year ago, when I discovered that there are many entrepreneurs and investors, researchers, and also professionals that are interested in bringing Israeli innovation and creativity to the global markets. And I'm very proud to say that after about a year, we have more than 450, actually it's around 500 people from both Israel, United States, and also from Latin America. And today I asked Jonathan Bowman and Moshe Bello to join us and discuss a very interesting and very hot issue, that how to penetrate the US aging markets. I would like to invite to speak Jonathan, Jonathan, the head of innovation for Home Instead senior care franchise, and Moshe Bello from Maccabi Ventures. Let me just bring you up to date with their experience. Prior to Homestead, Jonathan founded Immersion Active in 1998, and under his leadership, Immersion Active has been recognized by organizations such as the Webby, the WOMI, and the Web Health Awards, and the Content Marketing Awards. Jonathan is the co-author of Dot Boom, Marketing to Baby Boomers Through Meaningful Online Engagement. He worked with brands such as ARP, Del Webb, and a variety of travel, nonprofit, and senior care clients. Moshe is bringing more than 25 years of experience as an entrepreneur, strategic angel investor, and collaborative advisor to early stage technology companies across multiple industries. He is the third generation for senior living owner and a trademark, and he also trademarked the term Silver Tech. His expertise includes fintech, prop tech, cybersecurity, digital health, and of course, Silver Tech. So Jonathan and Moshe, welcome, and thank you for joining us so early in the morning. And I would like to start with you, Jonathan. I hope that your mic is open. Let me see, just, yes. Okay. Good morning, Jonathan.
Good morning. It's nice to be here, everybody.
We're in the middle of the unprecedented era. The COVID pandemic is now affecting more and more industries, and I think there is no way to describe and even evaluate how much effect it will have on the aging and the senior care market. and I will be happy to hear about your views. What are the significant changes that COVID-19 has created in the aging and senior care markets?
Sure. Yeah, and there's obviously been a lot of changes in every market right now. In our market, which to kind of level set this for everyone, it is a little bit different than where Moshe's some of Moshe's experiences. Our company provides non-medical in-home care for seniors versus facilities. So you've got a good contrast here, I think, in your two guests to be able to give some different perspectives. So our organization is a franchise organization, and then they send like a single caregiver at a time into the home of a senior to help take care of them. So for us, this is obviously like everybody else, I think, that is in the healthcare space. There's a need for the personal protective equipment, or the PPE. Has been huge. That's not something that we're going to focus on so much here today. One of the things that we have seen is we've seen actually like an increase in a certain kind of client, where the client will be a little more fragile, more frail, where we're getting more clients that want us in the home for a long period of time. So lots of hours during the week versus short visits. And we think that is because there's a little bit of a shift right now, given that there were some issues with long-term facilities kind of in the beginning of the pandemic, especially where certain nursing homes had large outbreaks and had a lot of deaths. So people are kind of hunkering down at home and wanting their loved ones a lot of times to stay at home, if that's a possibility, versus sending them out where they might be exposed to lots of different types of people. So that's a shift, I think, that could have a little bit of a lasting effect. We talk about at our with my group, my innovation group, we talk about what is the temporary model, like what's going to happen just for right now versus what might be enduring. And I think that we are going to see more of an emphasis on the home in the future, because of a renewed focus on protecting our elderly population. That is one of the things I think that will come out of this. I think we have seen, like, for instance, the flu has in the Southern Hemisphere during these winter months has actually gone down quite a bit, and some people say almost eradicated, based on the practices that we've had trying to contain COVID. And so I think there'll be a renewed sense of responsibility in how we interact with and care for vulnerable populations, period, of which, seniors can be. So I think that is going to change the way consumers think about it, but I also think it is going to change the expectation for how you interact with a senior, regardless of you're going into their home or you're taking care of them in a facility. So I'm going to just stop there real quick and let Moshe jump in.
Yeah, Jonathan,
okay.
I completely agree with Jonathan, and it's great to see everyone. Thanks everyone. I put on a clean shirt for the event. I'm actually wearing pants, so that's a step up. So I thank all of you for that. I think a couple of things just to frame it again, as Roy said. I'm a general partner, a managing partner of Maccabee Ventures. It's an early stage fund, so maybe I'll pepper some of our portfolio companies, not to sell. They're all well funded, but just to give you a sense of where our thinking is. But I'm also third generation senior living, as John mentioned. We've done everything in the space. My family, SNFs, that's skilled nursing facilities, assisted living, Alzheimer's, dementia. So that's the framing. So I think between John and I, we cover a large swath of the industry. But just to frame it for those of you that are on the phone, because I love data, and so I don't know if you guys have seen the CB Insights first half of the year or the pitch book. if you haven't, as entrepreneurs, as VCs, you should take a look. The healthcare investment has set a new record in the first half, $18.1 billion. There were 1,272 deals done, 6% increase quarter over quarter, particularly in telehealth. It's no news to Israel, I'm sure. It's up 22% with 441 deals done. And in New York, where I sit, it's the biggest ever, 47 deals done. So that's sort of the framing. And obviously, if you look at those, or we want to talk about it today, we can break those down. Specifically to your question, Roe, and I have
a short question, just because you like data. Okay.
Great.
Comparing to like a year ago, 2 years ago, is there an increase? Do you see like COVID has boosted all the deals, funding, and also meeting between entrepreneurs and investors and maybe companies or
yeah, so if you look at the numbers, yeah, great. Thank you. Great question. Also, it really, these two reports really break that down. So I won't do it justice, but I'll touch on some of them. I think there are more meetings happening. The more meetings are happening because we don't have to travel. I used to be on a plane once a week, easy, if not twice. So it's easier to get those meetings. Personally, for me, I'm relationship driven. So in order to develop those close relationships, I think it's tougher and it's taking longer. That's my experience. And I think then within that, there's some binary choices. There are some things that are not COVID friendly and they're sort of on hold. Then there's those things that are COVID friendly, let's say, and I'm overgeneralizing, COVID friendly. But then even in the COVID friendly, we as venture capitalists have to say, okay, what's frothy? Where's there too much money here? Where does it make sense or not make sense? Have we accelerated quick enough? And then is it going to still be that sticky? Is that growth trajectory going to stick? So, I have an example of a company, Tembo Health, which is a specialty telemedicine company for nursing homes. So cardiology, pulmonology, psychiatry. So as the doors of nursing homes closed, families, right, we still needed doctors. So that has had a wonderful trajectory, okay? But as all telemedicine companies, everyone rushed in. Now the question is, how do you make that sticky? How do you make that an avenue that people still want to hang on to rather than go to their specialist when the doors open again? And how much risk, as Jonathan was saying, do families and communities, senior communities, want to take?
I have to ask Jonathan about this question, because the social isolation and the way we work, for instance, in capsules, and organizations are working, in either from home, either from offices. The whole working process has just interrupted. Is it affecting, for instance, your innovation unit regarding, decision process? Or, for instance, if you're an entrepreneur and, okay, I have to get your attention, for instance, do I have to evaluate the fact that your work schedule has just, interrupted?
I want to make sure that I answer that right for you. Yeah, so I'm going to take a crack at it, and then you tell me if you want to ask another question here. We are busy doing our group is busy doing other things besides talking with startups. So whereas Moshe spends a lot of his day hearing pitches and talking to startups, to us, that is something that we have to manage because we have to work with our franchisees, with our global headquarters. That is where the bulk of our time is spent. But at the same time, we're trying to keep our finger on the pulse of what's going on in the industry, and we want to know about these new things. But I think one thing I would say is when you're talking with any company, even if they have a dedicated innovation unit like Home Instead does, and some don't, if they don't have somebody, you might consider whether or not that's a good partner for you. But even when they do, our time is limited, and so we need to kind of quickly see, what the potential benefit is for our company. One thing, and I started a business, and I understand as entrepreneurs, we love our ideas and we just think they're going to be great for everybody. So it's just trying to temper your expectations a little bit when you do talk with someone, and understand, even as Moshe was saying, like, it takes a while to establish a relationship. We're not always ready to jump right in. For us, we have to have willing participants to test something out, and we want it to connect to a need within our organization. There's a certain portion of our time that we'll take toward things that are very forward thinking. But for an organization, I think especially that is a franchise one, the focus on the here and now with a lot of our franchise owners is very real, and what drives them day to day. So not all of them are going to be in a position to say, let's think about 5 years down the road. You're talking about smaller offices, and they kind of rely on our teams at the global headquarters to do that kind of thing. But we need them to be able to test those things. So there is only so much that we can kind of push through the funnel at any one time, even if it all sounds interesting. And so the timing is something that it doesn't mean if we can't work with you at the moment, it doesn't mean that you don't have a good idea. It just might mean that the timing is not yet right. And so finding a way to stay in contact at the right kind of level is pretty important. But the big thing I would say there is trying to come in and understand how you're going to be able to help us out of the gates. In some cases, well, I think in most cases, you want to be able to say, like, I can do this job that you need to do better than you can. And then that's really going to get our attention. We do a lot of things well. There are other things that, any business could use help with. And those tend to be some of the pain points.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
John is being, excuse me for interrupting. John is being incredibly humble. And I want to share with the crowd that, Home Instead and John, I think, do a beautiful job at balancing the top down and the bottom up approach. In other words, John and his team solving problems on a corporate level, thinking through sort of that on a holistic level, and then allowing their franchisees the freedom to explore, the freedom to have a channel to corporate. John and his team do incredibly well, which leads me to my thought, and that is to the entrepreneurs that are on the call. I would really share with you, know who I don't know if everyone is seeing me, Roy, but know who who in the institution can be your champion. Who do you want the introduction to? And that is different in every organization. Like, sometimes the right person is Jonathan in this instance, but sometimes it's the franchisee that you need to talk to. In other institutions, it's very different. Your job as an entrepreneur is to play that treasure hunt and to find the right person. And sometimes a venture capitalist can help you because we have those connections, but it's often better, because in my questions to entrepreneurs, I'm going to say, okay, give me a list. I literally ask this of venture capitalists. Give me your dream list of 10 people that you want introductions to. And that will tell me if you've done your homework in particular, with particular companies.
Thank you. First of all, if we have time, we will have a question in the end. Yuval, I saw your raising a hand, but we're limited in time. And just for those of you who haven't read or done their homework, understanding who Home Instead is, it's the world leading provider in home care services for seniors, with more than 1,200 independently owned and operated franchises that provide more than 80 million hours of care annually throughout USA, Canada, and other countries. And having said that, and related to my other question, how large, this goes for both of you, how a VC and a large enterprise like Homestead view startups, innovation and new technologies. Jonathan, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think one of the things I mentioned earlier, I'll emphasize again, and that's just, making sure that you understand the business problems that a franchise is dealing with. If you're talking to a franchise, if you're talking to an organization that is corporate owned at all levels, you want to understand what those challenges are because they're different. So those are we're looking for people that have done their homework. Like, we don't want to have to figure out how you fit. We want you kind of coming with some ideas, but not making too many assumptions. So we want to leave some room for exploration. One of the things I would say, like, as an organization, I think how a lot of large organizations that have a mature business model look at startups, they can look at them as kind of a distraction. And so I want to explain what I mean here. When you have a really mature business model, it's a well-oiled machine. It's working. Like, our business right now is we're doing well. We're making money with our current model. So, and a lot of businesses can get complacent like this, where it's like, hey, we're really making money. We're not, and we don't want to disrupt things. Why fix something that isn't broken? So that is just something to understand. That can be a pervasive attitude from people within a company that are responsible for making that business run well. So that's a natural tension. That's a tension that my group has with the rest of the company. And it's a healthy tension where it needs to be there. But our job is to kind of push in that area. So that's something to understand and to know going in, is that any new way, any different way of doing things, unless it is a really big pain point, is going to be met with some resistance. And that's where understanding how to solve the business problems better than the way that they're solving them now can help get you attention when you're speaking to an organization like this, because you're going to relieve a pain point. We may be getting something done very well, but not effectively. Or we may be getting something done effectively, but at the expense of a poor customer experience. And so understanding the different things that you can do there to help us be a better business overall is really important.
Thank you. Moshe?
Yeah, so I love amplifying what John says. I think, so when we look at companies just in general, I teach venture capital at Yeshiva University, SciSim School of Business. So, I teach this. We look at the 6 T's. It's Chris Adams' 6 T's: team, theme, technology, terrain, timing, and traction, and terms. So that's how we look at it. But in responding to what John was saying, just amplifying that, again, in thinking about John's business, and I encourage entrepreneurs to think in this direction, you not only have to sell corporate in Jonathan's schema, but you have to sell the franchisee. Not only do you have to sell corporate and the franchisee, but you also got to sell the healthcare worker, right, who's going to be implementing a lot of those things and know where they are. So John might be a tech guru, and the franchisee might be an amazing person and understand it. But then you've got your home healthcare worker whose job is to give great care. So your technology can't get in the way of that and has to be very easy. Not only that, now we have to take it one more level, and we've got to sort of sell it to the family. First the senior and then the family, or some. So you really have maybe 4 or 5 folks in your sales paradigm. And again, entrepreneurs, you gotta think about that. And you have to help John think about that. Make his life easy, because he's got to take it to his folks and say, this is what we got. And the example I give to Israeli entrepreneurs, because I see a lot of Israeli companies, is even something as simple as, we have all these great technologies, right, that are Wi-Fi enabled or Bluetooth enabled. Even if it's something as simple, how are you shipping that to the person? Is there Wi-Fi passcode? Is there Wi-Fi password already in that? or after it gets to the home and they plug it in, does somebody have to put that in there?
Activate it.
That is a,
Yeah.
can be a big problem, even though it's tiny, it's a little big problem.
Yeah.
But
And that's a, go ahead, Roy.
No, it's tightening the knots. It's like you have to take the whole process, especially, you know, if you're an Israeli and you're not accustomed to scale up, okay? And we're talking about huge markets, huge distances, okay? Timing for shipping, timing, and you have to be in what I totally agree with Moshe about a whole different paradigm. And I want to ask Moshe, and you mentioned it, that you met with Israeli companies and startups. What you see as the, you know, the major differences between the US market and the Israeli one?
Wow. So a couple of things. Look, the Israeli market, and again, not pejorative, in a positive way, it's like family, you know, and I lived there for a time. So it's like family. It's a very small market. Israel has incredible advantages in having, you know, a digital healthcare system. You're with a healthcare provider basically your whole life. So there are great things there. In America, it's much more fragmented. It's much less sort of founder friendly, right? They're not going to give you reams of data just because you're asking for it. So I think that's one piece. So the fragmentation. From a sales perspective, I think Israeli companies, when they come here, it can be very overwhelming because you don't just need one champion. You need multiple champions in multiple healthcare systems, in multiple states, because healthcare is regulated by state. So that leads me to another big piece. So if you're in digital health or healthcare, it is, I think, imperative to understand the market. Understand, you know, I'll give you a really simple example. Understand revenue streams. So in America, we have reimbursements. So there are CPT codes. There are different codes that you can charge insurance. So when Israeli companies or any foreign company comes here and they're saying, well, this is what I'm going to charge the end user. It's a SaaS, it's a monthly, whatever. If they haven't looked at, you know, reimbursement codes, if it's appropriate, that says a lot to us. And by the way, that can be life-saving to the organization. Instead of $39 a month, right? Maybe it can be $9 a month because I'm being reimbursed X, or maybe the reimbursement is even bigger than that. Or you're telling a healthcare provider or a hospital, hey, you can bill, or a senior living community, you can bill for this. And now I'm increasing your gross margin. And that's a very different conversation, but you have to know that. And I think that's an education that I think Israeli companies need a little more in.
Yeah, and I'd say from a kind of a practical standpoint, like how your idea applies to, you know, the bottom line or the top line, is it going to generate revenue for me, or is it going to, you know, give me cost savings, as Moshe was mentioning with some of those examples? Like, how do I justify the expense of adding your technology into my business? That is huge, because I tell people a lot of times, like, don't confuse something that people say they want with something that people will pay for. Those are really different things. And one example that kind of breaks my heart that I'll share with you, and Roy mentioned it earlier, is social isolation. People don't seem to be willing to pay to solve that problem, or the way that they're paying for it now is by having a caregiver come into the home. But from a technology standpoint, it is something that it's not the primary reason that people engage with companies like ours or with other technologies. They figure out ways around it. It's like, well, I'm going to call my parent, and it's just kind of like the situation they kind of feel like it is. It's a silent killer And we know that social isolation is really bad, but you just don't see the effects of it right away. You can't see it after, returning to a parent's home after a month. You don't see like, oh, they're really not doing well, because it's different than doing something like not eating or not exercising or doing that. It's just a gradual, silent thing. And unfortunately, that has been a really tough thing, even for our organization, to try to, how do we add something on that is going to help with social isolation, but that we can't get people to pay for.
And I'll take that, John, to the next level of people's lives, and that is, an assisted living or senior living community. Families are keeping folks in their home longer to save money. At first they think they can care for them, but think about it. Go to your local assisted living. Assisted livings used to be 5 to 10 years ago a place where a senior go-go, we would call them, go-go would go and have the time of their lives. They would be social, they would play tennis, they would play golf, they would have their classes. And if you go to an assisted living today, it's really what nursing homes were 10 years ago, right? Nursing homes now are, people are generally not mobile. And, I implore families all the time, give your loved one, quality of life today, give them that. So, but as John was saying, part of it is a price issue. Part of it is, again, and I feel for it, I want to care for I made my loved one a promise that I would care for them. But think about the flip side. What am I cheating them from? What am I not giving them, or what am I not able to give from? And again, I'm on my soapbox because I think it's so important. This social isolation, especially now in COVID, it's a silent killer.
And also, if I may add, if we look at the broad picture, the aging in place, it's not just the pricing or the the services, but the mentality of our aging parents or the aging population. I mean, assisted living, as I see it, was a solution that was made maybe 40, 50 years ago, when life expectancy was maybe 65, 70. Now people just, exceed this life expectancy, and they live after their 80, 85. And as I see it, this solution is not ready or is not accountable for this population 70 plus. And when they are offered the opportunity, they refuse, because they are more vital, more mobile, more able to take, decision about their health issues, and etc. And what we see, for instance, in Israel, that most of the residents in assisted living are in their 85. That's the average age among maybe 90% of the residents here in Israel. So you see that it's not just the solution or the pricing or the product, which is the assisted living, it's also the mentality.
Yeah, so I'll go sort of counterintuitive here. So, I'm seeing now a lot of, and I think it's going to happen. I just haven't seen that team that's going to make it happen, but sort of Airbnb for seniors where, I don't need to own a home anymore, but I want to be near my daughter in California for 3 months and my son maybe in New York or Israel or whatever. And so sort of an Airbnb for seniors that has wraparound services around it. And they're going to hopefully get in touch with developers and help developers out after this is all over. And so I think it's a long-term play, but I think that will help recalibrate assisted livings, because once I'm sort of a baby boomer and I can live everywhere, maybe that stigma won't be there anymore. And I'm already, I don't want to say disconnected from my family, but they haven't been taking care of me. And so it'll be a different dynamic. I think that's going to happen. I look forward to it happening. And if anyone has teams that they love or that's a startup for them, get in touch, because I think that's a great play.
Well, I heard a couple of ideas that really relate to this this initiative, and we'll discuss it in another time. It's amazing how the time flies, and I really want to wrap it up for one last question. And you know, we're in the middle of, I think, in the middle of COVID here in Israel on the second wave. I'm not sure which wave are we on in the US. First of all, can you plan ahead for another year from now? And if so, what's the, you know, your major tips and trends and headings for the, you know, next 12 or 24 months?
I would, yeah, I would say, yeah, for the next 12 to 24 months, you know, I think the home is the place where things are happening. People feel more comfortable there, and it's for a multitude of reasons. But I think a big one of them is that the exposure to the number of people is less. So if a senior has to have care and needs someone to help take care of them, that, you know, having one person come in or a few people come in versus being exposed to a lot is something to think of. But some of the stuff that Moshe, you know, said earlier about you're going into a home now, so there's no IT person that lives with a senior, and you're lucky if you have somebody in their family who knows enough about technology to help things get set up. And so that point about being able to put the technology in and have it work, or having some way to be able to support that, regardless of if you're working through an in-home care company or a home health care company or whoever it is, those concerns are pretty big. So making sure that the senior can use the technology, that the technology can be set up easily, those types of things are really important. And it's one of the bigger things that I would say. Moving out past the next 12 to 24 months, I start to think about the boomer generation as they're starting to need care. The baby boomers, they're just not looking for some of the same things from retirement. The attitude toward going into facilities is different. I think it's still going to happen, because I think a lot of times, as Moshe was saying, it's like when people get put there when it's not when they're living out these years where they're playing tennis and doing all these sorts of things. It's more like they're getting closer to the time they may pass away. But they are going to expect technology to be a part of solving the challenges that they have in their lives, and they want to continue to live the lives that they have been living as much as they can, even if they have to adjust the way they're doing that. So that's one of the things I think. Really, I think that's a human thing, but I think it's going to be much stronger with the boomer generation, because they have grown up with technology in the workplace and they have a greater comfort with it, and so they want it to be able to enable those things.
Yeah, and I would say a couple of different pieces to this. So first of all, in the telehealth space or digital health space, I would say, you know, analyze going from a rush economy, so everyone rushing in, to a sustainability and service. Like, look at that. And if your people aren't talking about that now, you need to facilitate that conversation yesterday. I'll give you another example, diversification. So we have a company called Envoy America, ENVOY. It's transportation plus assistance and companionship for seniors. It's in 23 states, 300 cities. They were doing like taking seniors grocery shopping, to the doctor, all over the place, right? So you would think that that would tank during COVID, but we also do taking folks to dialysis, cancer treatments, American Cancer Society, all that. And so because they had a diverse portfolio and diverse clients, and they had thought about this and strategized about it, they used COVID as an opportunity to grow that practice. And that's amazing when you look at the Uber numbers and the Lyft numbers, and it's a very different product. So I would say, look at your product mix, because my view, Roe, is that over the next 12 to 18 months, it's going to be rolling hills, right? So in Israel, you're experiencing closures or closures at night. We'll see how politically that pans out. But we just started school today. So my view on school is, and my kids are in in-person school for the first time. Yay. So yeah, so my vision is that it's going to be rolling closures. So if you're a business, okay, look at your cash, look at your, be careful about hiring right now. So between product mix, preservation, where can you expand? Those are all good things. And I'll finally say to what Jonathan closed with is, it's my wagon wheel analogy. Be the hub, don't be another spoke. So think about my nurses at a nursing station, okay? If your product is digital health or whatever it is, or it's a piece of that puzzle, I cannot give my nurse 10 different dashboards to look at, 5 different apps on their phone, or John can't do that with his home healthcare folks. We need a hub. And so if you are in the market, be a hub, don't just be another smoke. It's going to be much harder to make a sale and get traction.
Yeah, and I'll build on that from our standpoint, because I think the word hub, and Moshe, tell me if I'm interpreting this a little differently than you meant. But when we say hub, it can make you think, go out and build the thing that everybody's going to use, and that may not be realistic. But the bigger point that I think Moshe is making is, don't make me switch between 10 things. We call that a little bit different term. We call it the swivel chair. So it's like, I'm going to type here, and then I'm going to turn to this computer and type here, and I'm going to just go around doing these different things. That is really distracting. One of the things that we hear a lot of times when we work with our franchisees and that try out a startup piece of software is, wow, it's really great. I just wish it integrated into our operational system. And I think that's the bigger point there, because you're not going to probably go in and replace, like if companies are using things like Salesforce or ClearCare or whatever giant piece of software they're using to manage their business, going in and saying, like, we have something that's not quite as good as that or mature as that, but it does a couple things really well. That's not your play, but you better be able to have a vision for how someone is going to be able to work with your product and not have it disturb their day-to-day operations. So can it integrate? Have you done healthcare integrations sold into some of those health systems? That is something that we would look at and be like, oh, okay, so we have our enterprise software. Are you going to be able to help make that software better and give us a leg up there? Or are you expecting us to change that for all of our 700 offices across North America? That's a big deal. And those decisions don't come lightly, and they happen over years and years. So if you want the fast path in, it's figure out how to integrate so that you're not having to say, well, it's just this other thing that you have to go to, the spoke thing, and it's either part of that hub, I guess.
Yeah, as
Moshe,
usual,
I'll let you respond to that, because that you may have a different perspective.
No, as usual, John, you are spot on. The other thing I would say also is, you can't be all things to all people. Like when you come to a VC and you're like, you can't be amazing. I won't mention, some names, but you can't be the best at voice, the best at, whatever radar. You can't be, fall detection. You can't be all those things, but what you can do is be great at what you do and integrate beautifully in what others are doing.
Yes.
I think really, it was enlightening, and just mentioning something which is not just technology and innovation regarding isolation. I just heard that the French post office trained his postmen, especially in the rural areas, to come and visit seniors in their home once a week, twice a week, and just ask them some question. If they're not allowed to analyze, they just report if they found the answers are not suitable. And when they find you know, different kinds of question, they just report to their area manager, and he connects either the social works or the family, and it's actually a paid service. French caregivers actually pay between 9 to 18 euros per month for these visits. So sometimes, you know, the solution is integrated not just with technology and with face-to-face interaction.
Yep.
So this is just, you know, you have to think not just tech or digital, but especially when you talk about isolation, the human touch, it has to be in some point.
Roe, so as a point of action, maybe for this team, right? I know from our perspective, you know, let's commit spending 5 minutes this week knocking on a neighbor's door. With our kids, we bake challah every Friday, and we have a list of older people. Obviously, we knock on the door and move back very far and wear masks and gloves when we do all that. But you know what? It starts here. If everyone takes 5 minutes and does whatever their part is, or make a phone call to somebody, we can literally start changing the world. Roe, thank you so much for that.
And especially that we are just 10 days away from the Jewish New Year's Eve, which is Rosh Hashanah. So I would take this opportunity to thank you, Moshe, Jonathan, and all of the group members who joined us for this really amazing discussion. And I want to wish you all Rosh Hashanah or Shana Tova and Happy New Year. And of course, and for, I mean, the foremost, a healthy year, a better year, and a challenging one. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Shana
Thank you
Tova.
all. It was great.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.